Hello everyone and welcome back to PTV FC. I'm your host Jimmy Bliss and I'm joined alongside my star-studded panel of Ryan Johnston and Louie Pasculli. We have a great special today as we're in studio for the first time and we're back with a bang. It's Hot Take Week this week, so grab your popcorn and get ready to watch us go at it. But before we get started, let the people know back home. Louie, Ryan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great today, Jimmy. I'm happy to be in studio. Like you said, man, I'm ready to kick off this Hot Take show. Let's get into it.
Yeah, I don't think you guys are going to like some of my takes, quite frankly, but hey, it is what it is.
Hot Takes Week.
It's Hot Takes Week, so, got to get some off.
Well, it was a hot take for a reason. Not everyone's going to agree with it, Ryan. So we're going to hop in with your first hot take of this special, and that is Arsenal will win the Europa League. So, Ryan, please explain your thinking here. Why do you think this is going to happen?
All right, I know that first round was not very convincing against Villarreal, okay? Had a red card, in 57th minute, Danny Ceballos, definitely not the greatest look. And Arteta trying sort of some false nine. I don't know what he was doing. He tried to mess with our tactics for no reason in the biggest game of our season so far. So I don't really know what he was doing there. Bukayo Saka came on, though, made a great impact. Nicolas Pepe got that penalty. Ended out better than I thought it was going to be at halftime. Halftime going in down 2-0, and especially basically right after halftime, the red card. Maybe a little bit of momentum there. So I think realistically, if we just execute our normal strategy against Villarreal in the second leg, we should easily take the cake in that one. I mean, 1-0 can easily, that's a very attainable result for this Arsenal team right now. So I wouldn't be surprised there. Obviously, your Red Devils are pretty good, Jimmy. So
they're all right.
They're doing okay. So that could be a tough final, but hey, man, it's the final. Anything can happen in one game, and I would definitely not be surprised if we just got a one-goal victory in that one either. So, hey, if Arsenal's playing Champions League football next season, don't say I didn't tell you, okay?
Gosh.
Don't say I didn't tell you.
That's reserved for West Ham.
That's all I'm saying. Don't say I didn't tell you.
You talked about Jimmy's team in Manchester United, but I think at first they have to beat Villarreal. There was a red card in that game, as you mentioned, but they already scored 2 goals before the red card was even a factor. And I was kind of surprised. They started off pretty slow. Villarreal had a lot of good chances early on in that game, and then they scored a penalty, which was their only goal of the game, and it was a little bit too late. They weren't able to come back. And then assuming that they were able to advance against Villarreal, which is a really big assumption in my opinion, they have to face a Manchester United team that is playing so well at the moment. They just put up 6 goals against Roma. It's going to be really hard for Arsenal to be able to beat Manchester United. I don't see them playing Champions League football next year. I don't see them winning the Europa League.
So I do think that Arsenal, if they get past Villarreal, I could definitely see them winning the Champions League final over Man United. We've seen Arsenal's had Man United's number this year. They beat them. They also drew against them. So they took 4 points off of Manchester United this year. With all due respect to Arsenal, I don't necessarily think that they're the strongest team left. I think that they're probably the 3rd strongest team left of the 4 in the Europa League. I think Man United and Villarreal are both better all through and through. But anyway, it definitely is a hot take, and I could see it coming true, but if I had to put money on it, no chance. I wouldn't put any money on Arsenal winning the Europa League. But we're going to move on to the next topic, the next hot take, and that's actually mine. And I believe that Raheem Sterling, the left winger for Manchester City, is really, really overrated. So I really think that he's just a byproduct of Pep Guardiola's system. He's just a pacey winger, and he can't shoot. He can dribble all right, and his passing's okay. He's just really fast. He can skill a little bit, and he's got no left foot. So, I mean, he even lost his starting job to a 20-year-old kid this season with Phil Foden, who that's not even his natural position. So, when you're just a pacey winger who can't really skill that much, and you can't shoot, your passing's mediocre at best, I don't understand why people think he's a top 25 player in the world. I mean, he's barely a top 5 left winger in the Premier League. I would take Mane for sure, Heung-min Son for sure, and Rashford for sure over him. And then I would probably go with Sterling maybe 3rd. No, I'd go Foden 3rd, and then Foden 4th, and then Sterling 5th. So I don't really see that the star factor that everyone sees in him. And Louie, what do you think about this?
We also forgot about Salah, who's also a winger and is insane.
Well, he's a right winger.
Oh, you just okay.
Yeah, we're talking about left
fair,
wingers.
yeah. No, so at first I was like, wow, that's crazy. Raheem Sterling is one of the best players in the Premier League. And then I dove into it a little bit more, and I kind of saw where Jimmy was coming from. He only has 9 goals this season, only has 7 assists. And in watching him, you're kind of right. I mean, yes, he's got the pace. He's able to provide width for Manchester City. But I was surprised that he wasn't doing more from his position. I'm kind of impartial on this, but I can definitely see where you're coming from in the sense that he might be a little bit overrated.
I mean, look, Jimmy, I got a question for you. If Raheem Sterling is only good because of his pace, why didn't Leroy Sané do the same thing when he was a left winger at Man City?
I mean, he did do a lot of the same things. It's just Pep Guardiola got into a fight with Leroy Sané in training and didn't provide him the necessary, game time to show how good he actually is. Now we see with Bayern, he's doing good things with Bayern. So I've always thought that Sané is a better winger than Sterling. I never really liked how it went down at the end of his Man City career with Sané and Pep Guardiola.
I don't know, man. I'm just not seeing, 9 goals and 7 assists for a winger, that's not shabby at all. I can understand why you're saying, it's a byproduct of Pep Guardiola's system because he's obviously one of the best managers in the world. But I can kind of see where you're coming from, but at the same time, I kind of can't. I don't know if that makes any sense.
I just think that you put, a bunch of the left wingers in the Premier League in this system, they're going to be getting the same numbers, if not better. I mean, you throw Harvey Barnes in there from Leicester, and he's just a young emerging winger. I think he has very, very similar numbers to what Raheem Sterling has right now with Manchester City, especially over the past calendar year. After he missed that goal against Lyon in the Champions League quarterfinals last year, he really, really went downhill. I mean, at that point, I had a little bit of remorse for him, but I really don't see any star potential in Raheem Sterling anymore. I think he's probably going to leave Manchester City, not this summer, but the summer after, as soon as Phil Foden really hits his stride and becomes, the prime of his career. I think that he's as good as done here for Pep Guardiola in Manchester City. But anyway, we're going to move on to Louie's hot take now, and that is Inter Milan is a big club. So Louie, take it away. Please explain your thinking. Why is Inter Milan a big club?
Yeah, I don't know if this is really a hot take per se, but I know just last week you said Inter is not a big club, so I want to reiterate to everybody that Inter actually is a big club, and here's why. So in the last 20 years, they've only finished below the top 6 3 times. They also had a stretch from 2005-2006 season to 2009-2010 season where they won 5 straight Serie A championships. And if you guys weren't paying attention, I can tell you who's going to win Serie A this year, and it's going to be Inter Milan. So they're definitely a big club, in my opinion. We were talking before the show that they hosted a Champions League final, and then Jimmy brought up the point that they share a stadium. It's kind of like the New York Jets, the New York Giants type thing. So that was interesting to me. Yes, they share a stadium with AC Milan, but I think that's more location-based rather than them not being a big enough club to have a stadium by themselves because they did have a Champions League final in that stadium. So I want to hear what you guys have to think. But I think they're one of the best sides in the Italian league. I think they're a huge club. I want to hear what you guys have to think.
I mean, I think this is mild takes right now. Inter is definitely a big club. Jimmy, personally, I don't see where you're coming from in the slightest. I mean, like Louie said, top of the Serie A right now. I think where Jimmy's coming from, didn't they get eliminated in the group stage of the Champions League?
Over the past 2 years, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So is Tottenham not a big club then?
I mean, they're like a medium-sized club.
Oh,
my goodness.
Tottenham is a huge club.
Oh my goodness.
They're not a huge club.
They're
pretty big.
pretty big.
So let me just ask this quick question, yes or no question. Are trophies what you consider to be a big club? If you win trophies, you're a big club.
Oh, that's a good question.
To some degree. I mean, they're definitely a factor in it, but they're not the only factor, And I feel like you're taking it as they haven't won anything meaningful for a little while, which they're going to this year. They're literally top of the Serie A this year.
If they're a big club, they should be winning more consistently. They haven't won a big trophy in over a decade. They have pretty much the same exact history as Aston Villa. They have 3 Champions Leagues, so does Aston Villa. They have 10 Serie A titles. Aston Villa has 7 Premier League titles. So is Aston Villa a big club compared to Inter Milan? I mean, they have a very similar history.
How old are Aston Villa's titles? Those are like
Well,
way before Serie A.
I mean, if you looked into Inter Milan's titles, they're from the 60s and 70s.
Not the ones that I just said. They won
Louie
5 in a row from 2005 to 2009 and 10. And
No,
also,
they didn't.
I think the fact that they finished lower than were expected to, I think that has to be attributed to the competitiveness of Serie A, because a lot of people forget the Serie A is a very defensive, very competitive league. Because people look at the German league as well as the EPL as for the top leagues in Europe, but I think they rival Spain. Serie A does in terms of competitiveness. So I think that's the reason why they finished, subpar than they would have liked to, rather than not being a big club.
I just think that Inter is severely overrated. Every time I see them in the Champions League, they bow out in the group stage. I mean, if you're a big club, you got to be at least getting out of the round to the round of 16. And I know Man United didn't do it this year, so I know you guys might be saying, what are you saying, Jimmy? But at least we've done something in the last 10 years, unlike what Inter Milan has done. I do think that Inter Milan, I mean, they don't even have their own stadium. We've seen all these teams all over soccer in the same cities that have their own stadiums, and they're in the same cities. I mean, the Manchester clubs have had different stadiums. The Madrid clubs both have different stadiums. So, you don't even have your own stadium. You can't even pay for your own stadium. I don't really know how big of a club you can be if you can't even afford, I don't know, a few £100 million to make a stadium. I just don't see it. I think Inter Milan is a solid club, but I wouldn't rank them as a top 10, top 12 club in the world. I think that they're definitely on the outs on that.
So for basketball, the Clippers and the Lakers share the Staples Center. The Lakers were there first. Are the Clippers not a big organization because of that?
Same thing with the Jets and the Giants. I mean, it's New York, it's LA, right? It's the two largest cities and the most marketed cities that bring in the most income in the United States, but they share stadiums. So I think, like I said, it's, like I mentioned before, I think it's more location rather than them being a small club.
I mean, the Jets are kind of a small franchise. I mean, I'm a Jets fan, and we have the least amount of followers on Instagram of all the NFL teams apart from Jacksonville. The Clippers, I mean, they've done pretty much nothing for their entire franchise's existence. So, I mean, if we're going to bring on American sports into this, the Lakers have been good. But AC Milan is also, well, I'm not going to bring them into this because we can say that for another day, but I think Inter Milan, a little bit overrated. Every year they're supposed to be doing stuff in the Champions League. Every year they're supposed to be doing stuff in Serie A, but every year they disappoint.
Except for this year. Every year except for this year, because they're going to win the Serie A.
Okay, well, Leicester City won the Premier League 1 year too, but that doesn't necessarily make them a big club.
But you can't possibly compare Leicester to Inter Milan.
Yeah,
well, we'll have this conversation
That's
for another
fine.
day because this is all the time we have for Inter Milan being a non-big club here. And we're going to move on to Ryan's next hot take, and that's Liverpool isn't going to win a major trophy with their current squad. And Ryan, please explain what you mean by winning a major trophy and then why you think that this isn't going to happen.
Sure. So I don't think that Arsenal is going to, Arsenal. They're not going to win either. Right? They're not going to win major trophy.
No, they're not.
But by major trophy, I mean Premier League or Champions League. They could win the FA Cup, which is, that's a pretty big deal in England especially. But Premier League, I think Man City has it on lock for the next few years. I mean, I don't see anyone competing with this Pep Guardiola squad. I think he finally has it figured out. I think they're really just they're gonna kind of run away with it for the next few years, in my opinion. They weren't even fully healthy all year long this year, and they're still head and shoulders above the rest of the Premier League. Not even close. I know Liverpool obviously has had a lot of difficulties with injuries, and it's kind of that reason too why I just don't see it. Virgil van Dijk, a lot of players don't come back the same after a torn ACL, and it's going to take him a while to really get back into that same form, if he ever gets back into that same form that we saw him at before the injury. So I know they're a very young squad, and Jurgen Klopp is obviously a great manager, but with the talent in PSG right now, PSG is so young. It is ridiculous how young they are and how talented they are. Besides maybe Di Maria in that offensive trio, but I mean, PSG is going to be one of the Champions League favorites for the next few years, for sure. Man City is going to be up there. Bayern Munich, still, they're my number one team in the world. I don't think Liverpool is going to win another Champions League with this squad. I think their best shot is with the Premier League, and I think Man City has it locked up.
I'll have to disagree with you there. I mean, we're talking about a team who has literally 0 healthy center backs, and they were fighting for a Europa League spot just a few weeks ago. They still are fighting for a Europa League spot, as it's so close in that 4, 5, and 6 area of the Premier League. This is a really good team. I mean, we can't be sleeping on Liverpool. They have Mo Salah, who very well, he might win the Golden Boot this year. And then, obviously, we talked about Virgil van Dijk having torn my ACL myself. I know it's an awful injury to have, and you're right, it is going to be hard to come back. But also, Joel Matip is injured. And they also have such a deep midfield that, like, they can play any role necessary, and they're always on their game. I mean, Fabinho, Henderson, all those guys. Thiago, they got from Bayern Munich. They're so versatile in the midfield. I mean, let's think theoretically. If Aguero leaves Manchester City and then they do a poor job in the transfer window, let's say they miss out on Haaland and then they don't get Messi on a transfer or whatever the case might be, then I think Liverpool very well could rival them in the Premier League.
Yeah, I don't understand where you're going with this, Ryan. I know that they have not looked their best this year, but you have the best club manager in the world, in my opinion, with Jurgen Klopp. And I think that with Virgil van Dijk coming back, even if he's not at his best, he's still going to be like 75% of his best, and that's still one of the best center backs in the Premier League. I do think Man City is a juggernaut, but I feel like Man City's had the ability over the past few years to lose games that they should win, and Liverpool has really had that mentality where they not only win games, but they like drive their faces in the mud during the wins. It's really like a really killer instinct that Jurgen Klopp has with this team. And with their injuries, obviously, come a lot of woes, ups and downs, because you have to realize how to play with all these new players that are in, especially a lot of the new players, like the young players that they have at center back. They're not necessarily ready for the Premier League. And with this experience that they're getting this year, I know it's been not so good experience, but experience is experience. You're getting up to standard in the Premier League to potentially play week in, week out. I think that they'll be fine. I think that, as much as I hate to say it as a Manchester United fan, I think that Liverpool is going to win the Premier League within the next 2 years after this one ends. So either next year or the year after, I think they're going to be completely fine, and I think they're going to go on and win a major trophy. As for the Champions League, I could see them winning it as well, but I think they're more of a Premier League team than they are of a Champions League team. But anyway, we're going to move on to my next hot take, and it is the penultimate hot take of the episode, and that is Neymar is the most physically talented player in the world of soccer history. So you guys might be thinking, what are you saying here, Jimmy? But, I mean, the guy's 5'11", and he is agile as anything. He won a Puskas at the age of 19 with Santos, and he just skilled around everyone, and of course he scored it because he's Neymar. He had a huge move to Barcelona, and everyone knew he was going to be the next big thing. I'm a really big fan of Neymar. I think that you really can't teach what he's got. He's an amazing skiller. He's got a ridiculous left and a right foot, so no matter where you're defending him from, you have to defend him from both sides. You can't lead him onto his left foot or onto his right foot. I just think that he's going to be a problem for the rest of his career. So, Ryan, let's hear your thoughts. What do you think about my hot take?
I mean, am I forgetting about Cristiano Ronaldo or something?
That's exactly who I had written down.
I'm kind of flabbergasted that you're just overlooking him like this. I mean, the guy is 6 foot. He's shredded. Like, he is an absolute beast. Have you seen the guy's legs, Jimmy? Have you seen the guy's legs?
I don't usually spend time looking at guys' legs, Ryan.
I mean, you can just go on his Instagram. You don't even have to look. You don't have to search up Cristiano Ronaldo legs. It's just there. You know?
I don't know what you're doing in your free time, Ryan.
He's got tree trunks for legs, Jimmy.
And like all the ads that he's on, you could just see him working out in his amazing house, and he just is always grinding, never stops, and those legs are just like always on weights. It's insane.
The guy's got a vertical of greater than the average NBA player. He's fat. He's just as fast, if not faster, than Neymar. He's just as good at skilling as Neymar. I mean,
pick an attribute, and Cristiano Ronaldo's in the top of the category for it.
He's more prolific as a striker than Neymar. I mean, the guy is just more physically gifted than Neymar. I don't understand it. I mean, if we're going skills, I mean, Ronaldinho is definitely up there. You got to mention the greatest skiller of all time.
Maybe I misspoke because I meant technically gifted player, not physically gifted. I think that Neymar is like the most talented player that this world has ever seen. I don't think he's the best per se, but I think if you throw him in any game, he's going to stand out and be probably the most talented player on the field.
I would argue that Cristiano Ronaldo is the same way though, because of like we said, every single attribute that you want Cristiano Ronaldo has. He's able to score from free kicks. He's able to score from inside the box. He's able to skill. He's able to have a good pass. String together a lot of good passes when he needs to. I got so worked up about him, I stuttered so much. That's how much I like Cristiano Ronaldo.
I wouldn't necessarily say that Ronaldo's a good passer.
I mean, you wouldn't notice it, but there are some passes he makes where it surprises you about how good of a passer he is. Now, I wouldn't say it's all the time, and there are definitely players who are better at passing than Cristiano Ronaldo. But when he needs to pass, he's able to pass and get it done at a high level.
And I mean, if we're talking just technically like most skilled player ever, like your favorite player, Leonel Messi. I mean, you got to mention him. He might not do all the fancy skills that Neymar does, but I'd argue that he's a lot more efficient with his dribbles. And you guys have seen the highlights of him just dribbling through entire teams. That's what makes him so good. I mean, I don't know. I think you're overrating Neymar a little bit here. He hasn't even won a Ballon d'Or yet. So
that's a great point. And don't get us wrong. I think that Cristiano Ronaldo, that Neymar is a great player.
Exactly,
Right? Like I'm not nothing against Neymar. He's one of the best in the world. But I think most technically gifted of all time. That's a really hard argument to make.
Yeah, I just think that Messi is a really good argument, but I feel like him at 5'7" is kind of tough to say that because he's not as like gifted. Because Neymar's 5'11", so he's so short that you can kind of like nudge him off the ball. As for Ronaldo, I understand what you're saying. He is a really good skiller, but he's not so much of a good skiller anymore, and he's just more of a finisher at this point in his career. But nonetheless, we'll settle this argument some other day as to who the most technically gifted footballer of all time is. And now we're going to stop the show with one last hot take, and that is Louie's hot take. And this hot take is Erling Braut Haaland will be the best player in the world within the next 3 to 4 years. So, Louie, please let us know what's going on in your head.
I'm happy to let you know what's going on. And you guys want to talk about technically gifted? Look up any video of Erling Haaland. This is a guy who scored 9 goals in a U17 team for the Norwegian national team, a U17 game for the Norwegian national team. He's an absolute monster. He's, 21 years old. He obviously plays for Borussia Dortmund, which is one of the biggest clubs in Germany. He's a wonder boy. He has all the potential in the world. It's going to be him and Mbappe battling for who's going to be the best player over the next 10 years or so. I love watching him play. This is a guy who I think, regardless of where he goes, he's going to have an immediate impact. There's a few names out there. He could go to Real Madrid. He could go to Manchester United. I don't really know where he's going to go. I'm going to be sad to see him leave, I can tell you that. But wherever he goes, he's going to have an immediate impact, and I think he has the potential to be the best player in the world.
I mean, yeah, Erling Haaland is definitely an amazing talent, and definitely going to be one of the top players at least. I think Kylian Mbappe is still over him at this point. He's won the World Cup. Obviously, that's a team accomplishment. But you can't take that away from him. He's won. Both of them have won Golden Boy, I think. So it's going to be tough. I think those two can go tit for tat for the best player in the world in the coming years. After Leonel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo. I think Robert Lewandowski is the best player in the world. I've said it many times on this show before. After he fades in a few years, because he's getting older too, and in 3 or 4 years, I don't see why either of them would not be considered the best player in the world.
Right, and that's the one player that is Mbappe. It's going to be either Haaland or Mbappe. So you're right. It's a hard take to really drive home and to really say yes, for sure it's going to be Haaland, because there's a very good chance that Mbappe is equally as good as Haaland. But for me, I really enjoy watching. I mean, I enjoy watching both of those guys play, but I really enjoy watching Haaland play.
Yeah, I definitely see what you're saying here, Louie, but I got to be on the side of Ryan, and I do think that it's going to be Mbappe that's going to be the best player in just a few years. I think Mbappe's taking that next step in front of us. I know so is Haaland. Haaland's been really good over the past few seasons, especially since he's moved to Dortmund. He's been an absolute goal machine. But I just think that the overall game that Mbappe has is better than the overall game of Erling Braut Haaland, because I feel like Haaland is all about goals, whereas Mbappe, he can do a few things better than Erling Braut Haaland can do. He can definitely pass better, and he can definitely dribble better and skill better. But Haaland is still a really, really good player. I do think he has a really, really bright future ahead of him, potentially in Old Trafford. I would love to see him come to the red and white of Manchester in a few years, but nonetheless, great future ahead of him. I think that the next place that he goes is going to really determine his next step, though, because he goes to Dortmund, and Dortmund's a really good developmental club, and he's taken that next step perfectly. And then he's got to take the next step after that to become one of the actual best players in the world. So if he does go to, I don't know, a Barcelona, a Real Madrid, a Manchester City, one of these like 3 teams that I just aforementioned, it's going to be really, really good for him. So I would definitely say that he's up there, but I would say Mbappe is just a little bit better at this point in time. But
Jimmy, real quick before you wrap up, I think we're forgetting someone for best player in the world.
Oh, I know where he's going with this.
Martin Odegaard, you know, come on, the Arsenal, you know, he's definitely up there. Come on, I know you're feeling it, Louie.
I'm gonna act like I didn't hear that.
I know you're feeling it.
yeah, I'm just going to pretend I didn't hear that. And we're going to wrap up on that note. So that's all the time we have today for PTV FC Live. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate your support. Thank you to our producers, Cooper Tennant, Mateus Bueno, Ben Harris, and Christian Gardner for making this all possible. For a panel of Ryan Johnston and Louie Pasculli, once again, I'm Jimmy Bliss. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week as we keep you updated on all things soccer all year long.